history, which was that her family was from Alsace-Lorraine. Her dad used to tell them that the von in their name meant that they were barons in the old country. And I sort of bring that in a little bit in the series. The whole character of Stanley, he's not a real person, but he is based on a real group of boys that used to follow this woman around because she was known in the neighborhood as being a, quote, nice girl. And so these boys were very protective of her, and she was always getting off from these sleazy jobs really late at night, and she would be walking home. They would follow her at a distance until she made it home. That's such a neat detail. I really want to put that in a book, but I couldn't really figure out a way to write this gang of boys. So I smushed them all into the character of Stanley. Yeah, the whole burlesque scene in book one is basically almost word for real. I mean, not the crime and the bad guy and all of that. She really did audition for this job. She was just an usherette. She wasn't even a dancer. And yet she still had to get up on stage and she had to like flash her booty and all of this to just get the job as the usherette. And it was a very strange, dark place. There's a gang of lesbian characters in the first book, and they kind of appear periodically in the subsequent books as Henrietta's friends. This really happened. These women really came on to the real life Henrietta. And she said, I'm really not like that. Once they found that out, they actually became her protectors because they saw her as this innocent working in this very bad place. And so they would invite her to their parties after the show. And I'm like, oh, wow, what was that like? It was such an amazing time to just sit and listen to this woman. She was just like this font of information. So I took a lot of her details and wove them into the character.
That probably made your day go by quick, sitting and talking to her.
It did. It did. I mean, I just loved that job. I was hired as the admissions director, and I was really terrible at it because I didn't realize when I took the job that my real job is to sell beds. I was supposed to be out at hospitals like schmoozing the discharge staff or, like sitting at my desk answering the phone. And I was always on the floor with the people talking to them and listening to them. And the administrator finally called me into his office and he said, this isn't working. And I'm like, oh no, I'm going to be fired. He's like, we're going to move you into social service. I'm like, yay, dream job. So, yeah, that was the beginning of it all.
You mentioned your novel notes and local lore earlier. We enjoyed looking at that. We felt they were a love letter to a time gone by. Did you find these things in your research for your books?
Yeah, thanks. That's such a nice way to describe it. It really came out of that time at the nursing home. I was supposed to just write literally a tiny paragraph about each person's life to be put in the chart so that the staff could have a little bit of a glimpse of who this person is. But I would sit with these people for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, or interview their families if they couldn't speak or they had a stroke or something like that. It was fascinating because it helped them feel like somebody there actually cared about their story and who they were. And you know how it is, like the older people telling the same stories over and over to their family, but here was a fresh person that wanted to hear them all. Bring it on. Like, tell me everything. So I think it was good for them. It's certainly a wonderful experience for me. And I think the staff really appreciated it. They would come up to me in the hall and say, oh, well, we read your latest one. I'm like, thanks. Wasn't it sad? Because I would write pages and pages and pages and pages, and nobody ever told me not to. The blog really has its own little following. I mean, there's people who read the blog that don't read the books and vice versa. So I'm really proud of that. And I think it's really touched and moved a lot of people.
Before the pandemic hit, I visit with hospice patients, and I had one patient who was 105. We used to sit and talk for hours. I just loved those times. They have so much wisdom from the past.
They do. And sometimes if I'm talking with writers groups, I never suffer from writer's block. I'll say to people, if you're stuck for an idea, just go sit in a nursing home for a couple of weeks and you'll have more stories than you could ever write in your lifetime. Really.
Very true.
Just to hear what these people have been through. I mean, they're just ordinary people, but when you really delve into, and that could be said for any of us, right? Everybody has a story. Everybody has a backstory and things that they have gone through. And I just think it's fascinating to just sit and hear those stories and then try to share those with other people, because I do think that you can learn a lot.
Definitely.
Well, since you
do not suffer from writer's block and we're stuck inside. Are you working on any new books right now?
Tricky question. I've outlined book 6 for the series, so I want the series to go on, but I took a little break from the series and I wrote 2 other standalone novels. They are also based on real stories. They're also set in the 30s in Chicago, but they have nothing to do with the series or those characters. I am in the middle of revising one. The other one I'm currently pitching to various agents. I'm going to try to go with a different agent, a different publisher, see where that takes me. I'm kind of waiting for that situation to resolve, hopefully favorably. Then I will move on, go back to working on the series.
Going to be mysteries?
No, they're more like just women's fiction. One is based on a woman that I met at the home who had some mental deficiency. She was labeled backward or slow. As a young girl, she found herself pregnant, was forced to go live in a home for bad girls. That was actually what it was called, the home for bad girls. While she's there, her baby gets taken and without her permission. It's sort of this whole saga, and there's a nurse that's trying to help her, and she falls in love with this doctor who she finds out it was him that took the baby away. So then it creates all this conflict and drama. Still a little mysterious element.
Can you give our listeners your website so they can keep track of you and all these books that you have coming out?
Yeah, great. My website is michellecoxwrites.com. You can find all my links there, the blog and all my social media links. There's links to all the audiobooks there, the blog. I am in the middle of updating the website, but it's still active right now. I would encourage everybody to please sign up for my newsletter because I do these huge giveaways every couple of months just for my subscribers. It's a monthly newsletter. I don't spam you all the time. An update on what I'm doing, what's been going on with me in the last month. But I do these huge giveaways where I give away like iPads, Kindle readers, sets of books, luggage, trips, you name it.
Wow.
And that's just for subscribers. Every giveaway, I just pick one name from the list. They win the big package.
Wow.
Get out. Yeah.
We'll be signing up today.
Right. I'll look for you. Yeah.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show. We enjoyed this book so much. We unfortunately have not read the other ones, but they are definitely on my to-be read
I'm going
list.
back to read the other
I want to find out how's all this craziness. There it is.
Well, good. I hope so. Yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think because, yeah, they definitely get bigger and more complex as we're going along.
Dandelion, the one you described, sounds very intriguing. I'm looking forward to that as well.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I really like that story, too. Hopefully that will be out on the shelf sometime in the future. Cross your fingers.
Thanks, Michelle. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Well, since this was my first Clive and Henrietta book, I really, really enjoyed it. I loved how she balanced a lighthearted case with a darker case. It was nice because it kind of balanced the two. Like she said, she has to be careful not to go too dark. So the spiritualist angle just gave it enough lightheartedness. It kind of gave you a break from the more tragic case.
I imagine back in the 30s, the Depression was still going on in some areas. Henrietta is lucky enough to have married a wealthy man, and she's trying to fit into that society, but she hasn't forgotten where she came from either. There are actually like 3 stories that converge into one with this little almost like a repertoire company of people that all interact with each other. This is the first one I have read, but the characters were very comfortable. It was almost like I already knew about these people.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way.
They just eased in. Some you read and you go, why does she want to be with this person? But they all kind of mesh together, and there's a lot of love behind this book. Elsie and Gunther and Henrietta. And
one of the reasons why I'd like to go back and read this series is I'm very intrigued by Henrietta's relationship with her mother.
Oh, yes.
I'd like to see how all that came to be.
Definitely. And how she and Clive got together in the first place, because they obviously came from 2 separate worlds. She's got her feet in both places. She still goes back to the old life when she needs a break.
Even though they weren't relatives, she considers them family.
Oh, yes. At the bar.
She worked, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to agree really wholeheartedly with Michelle Cox's character development. These people are written so well. I'm very intrigued with all of them, honestly, but Gunther's story I really, really liked.
Kind of heartbreaking in a way, but he has Anna.
But she also brought out that Clive was in World War I, so he has a bit of a prejudice against German people, and so that aspect is brought
He's
out.
He's not sure about Gunther.
Right. Clive has a little bit of a prejudice to get over, but it seems like Gunther is presenting himself as a very decent man, so I think that'll work out. But that's a story that I really look forward to reading him. And the dichotomy of the two worlds is presented very well, the haves and the have-nots. Henrietta has not left the worlds of the have-nots behind. She's kind of forcing Clive to move along. There's a progressive nature to his worldview.
He probably didn't even think about people in that realm before.
I was just intrigued by Rose and Billy and their tragic story, how mentally challenged people were treated back then. Rose and her surrounding friends
family
treated him very well, which was really nice to see.
With a lot more respect than most people would have been.
Yeah, well, his own father was
a piece of
jerk.
But I mean, that's how a lot of people viewed mentally unstable people at the time. Well, not mentally unstable, but mentally disabled.
Well, Rose wasn't mentally, but he still treated her.
Well, he was a misogynist from the word go.
I've had the pleasure, I've been to Chicago, even though Chicago is a very thoroughly modern city. The one thing that I really enjoyed was the architecture is still a remnant from the past. So when she's describing things, it's like any metropolitan area. You always have your areas that are where the architecture is, and I really enjoy that. I really think she did a great job of letting Chicago 1930 shine through in her depiction of not only the characters, but the settings. It's very interesting about the Crazy Train. That blew my mind, that Dunning is a real place. I'm really thankful I live now and not back then, because I'm kind of a rule breaker, and I'm sure I would have ended up in some kind of place.
Well, a lot of times what you're saying is true. If you had a child that talked back and didn't mind, it's just easy to put them in an asylum for rest and rehabilitation.
Well, not only children, but husbands would lock up their wives because they weren't minding them.
Yeah.
Or if they had a mistress and they just wanted to get rid of the wife for a while.
She's hysterical.
Yes. Yeah.
Or melancholy, or, all these terms that are just absolutely ridiculous.
We highly recommend this book.
And this whole series.
But I think, as Michelle said, since it builds book after book, I would probably recommend that you read it from the beginning so you know all the characters.
And there's only 5, so...
Right. They're easy reads. Once you get in it, you're not going to put it down.
Some historicals get bogged down in the detail and the facts, and this educates, but without being preachy.
Yeah, and then in this one, there were hints, allusions to what had gone on in the past, so definitely read from the beginning.
Yeah, I didn't feel lost at all.
No, I didn't. It just made you think, well, I should have read from the beginning.
Yeah, I am definitely going to go back and read those.
Definitely.
Because I enjoyed this book so much.
And I'm definitely going to sign up for her newsletter.
Oh, me too. I think we ought to cut that part out because we don't want everybody else signing up. We thank Michelle for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed that book.
My new and noteworthy book is Invisible Girl by Lisa Jewell. It is put out by Atria Books and comes out on October 13th. An engrossing, twisty story of how we look in the wrong places for bad people while the real predators walk among us in plain sight.
My new and noteworthy book this week is called Plain